Alright, welcome viewers. Today we're going to go over how to repair a puncture in a tire yourself. This is just a good skill to have for doing your own automotive work, but also can save you a little bit of money on costly items yourself. So if we want to come in here, you can see we've got the tire off of the car. We're doing this in our own garage area here, but if you need to, use the car jack and lug wrench like you'd have in the car, just as if you're going to switch it to the spare. Make sure you're blocking and following all those safety items accordingly. So we've got the tire here, and what you're going to want to do is just very slowly take the tire and rotate it until you find your likely leak point. Now, a good trick that I've kind of found out is using a little bit of glass cleaner or Windex, and then look for where the bubbles start showing up. And you can see that that is the point in which our tire is leaking. Of course, this is a nice slow leak, and what's actually driven in there is a little piece of a metal, maybe it's part of a screw or a nail. Whatever the case is, it's letting that air by it. So, a new tire itself, I mean, this one's still got a good amount of tread left. This is probably a $100 tire for this car. Well, let's repair this little puncture, and they make great little kits for that. Somewhere around $8 or $9 you can get a kit. It's oftentimes a plastic cylinder tube, and then with red caps on either end. And basically what it is you have a strip of tire rubber here with a special kind of a polymer or sticky agent on it that's going to help stick it inside that tire. And you've got two little hand tools as well. You've got your first one here, just kind of the reamer. You can see it's got this knurled edge. What that's going to do is you're going to pull the bit of metal or the puncture out of it. You're going to push this in, and you're going to turn it around a little bit and kind of rough up those tire fibers that are in there so that the polymers on this can grab it better. You'll take a strip of this, you'll place it in your kind of your needle here, if that makes sense, and you'll actually want to push that in there, twist it, and then pull it out. And in that process then you'll have this plug of rubber will be stuck in that hole that we've made. You know, while a fix like this can oftentimes be a permanent fix, it shouldn't be received as such. A lot of times, you know, these will start to leak after a year or two, and it can't really be considered permanent. I would strongly recommend not using more than, say, one of these on a tire, but that's also depending on how reliable you need your vehicle to be. If you're traveling a short distance to work every day and it's not that big of a deal if you get left on the side of the road, or if you have a spare, then these will work great. Now, if you're traveling a long distance to work and it would be a big hassle for you, you're not so mechanically inclined, maybe you go for the extra spending and get just a new tire. Always be very careful of any damage that is on the sidewall of the tire. This is a very vulnerable spot, and most damage here people will not repair just because it will cause a blowout later. So anytime you see punctures going basically in through the front face of this tread, you're generally pretty safe to do this. So we're going to start in on this, and we'll see if we can get this done in somewhat of a timely fashion for you on the video. All right, so we've got our little piece of metal down in there. I'm just going to be using a standard vice grips. This is sometimes a little bit easier to get a hold of these pieces and be able to clamp onto them. I'm going to tighten that down, set my vice grip, and then pull it out. That's the piece of metal that has been stuck in this tire. You can kind of see pretty vicious looking. And as you can hear there, you've got the air leaking out of it. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You're going to have to be able to fill this tire back up. You'll need an air compressor to do that once we've completed the repair. So with that, we're going to let that air continue to work its way out of that tire, and we will take our next tool, just the reamer here, and basically work your way in to that point, opening up that hole. And tires are remarkably tough material, so it can take a bit of effort. And as you can see, you want to get it about to the handle depth in there. Again, working it side to side. And as you're doing that, you're roughing up those fibers, you're opening that up. So, now that we've got that, we'll go next to our replacement little strip here. You can see just kind of the the stickiness of this, and this is what's going to help plug that up and hold that piece of rubber in there. Again, this can be a very demanding task, but basically you want to gently put the thread through there, and this is actually a separated tool, so I will I'm going to show you a little trick to open that up. So you can see how it splits open in there. What that allows is then when you push the rubber in, this will open up and let the piece come back out. So kind of a hard process to make sure we get right here. We want to basically try and wedge our screwdriver in between. Now that we've got that opened up, we'll try and basically just feed this little bit of tire rubber through it. Once we get a little bit of it through, you can usually get a hold of it and pull it the rest of the way. But it's just getting that initial start, kind of like threading a needle. So once you get that through, you want to pull it to about the midway point, about halfway through. You'll pull this out, so then now you've got your piece in there. You want to go back to your hole here, and what the idea is, you want to drive this into it, give it a good twist to kind of almost like tie this knot, and then pull this back out. This can be, depending on the type of tire, a fairly arduous task to get the piece in there nicely, but I'll gently kind of keep pushing and working it in there. And tires are notorious for being quite dirty, so just plan on getting a little bit of a grime on you. Gently pushing or keeping a good steady pressure and slowly working just back and forth, and you'll feel that start to go in. It's not necessarily how hard you're pushing, but the fact that you're maintaining a constant pressure. All right, so now we've got, you can see most of the plug is in there. We're going to want to turn this a couple of times. What that's doing is then it's going to allow this to pull out without pulling the rubber with it. So what you'll then do, you can leave this just how it is. These parts will wear off. What I like to do is I'll come back with the little pliers or side cutters and cut it flush with the tire. And then you'll put air back in the tire, spray it again with your glass cleaner, and see if you have any bubbles. And that will save you about a $100 tire. This tire is good for hopefully another couple of years until it's done. All right, so we've got it cut down flush with the level of the tread here as best we can. I was thinking about it, and actually I think you'll want to cut this down at the end, and that'll help prevent this from catching on the road and being slowly pulled out over the life of this plug. So it's better to try and get in there as close as you can to flush with the tire. Don't be afraid of the tire. The tires are really quite thick. Even if you're down on your tread, there's still at least another 3/4 inch of rubber beneath this. So you're not going to damage it by getting in there with a standard small hand tool like that. So you have to be quite aggressive to get that done. Now that we've got that in there, you'll put some air back in this tire to replace any air that you've lost during the process, or just if your tire started off as being flat. Again, I recommend taking a little bit of glass cleaner or Windex, spray this down, make sure that your plug is not still leaking. If it is still leaking, then you maybe need to look at bringing it to a shop, or you can try again with using a little bit more of a silicone-based adhesive like a RTV or some kind of a 3M adhesive product meant for all weather conditions. So with that, we'll put the tire back on and we'll be good to go down the road.